come all the way to Wolverhampton. Clint Goodchild from the York Knights, owner of the York Knights. Clint, first of all, thank you for coming down. We really appreciate it,
It's great to be in studio, mate. Thanks for picking me up from the train station and showing me the sights.
So there's a whole lot going on with Rugby League. There's a whole lot going on with York Knights, mate. So this next hour, I think we're just going to chew the fat and we're going to get stuck into it. So I think for anybody watching this show, our viewers, first of all, it would be just nice to get a bit of a backstory for you. Obviously, Aussie, how did you get into rugby league? I suppose you was born with a rugby ball, no doubt. How did you get into the sport and a bit of a timeline, really?
Yeah, growing up, I grew up between Roma and Charleville on the Warrego Highway, which is about 10 or 12 hours west of Brisbane.
Right.
And there's not a lot happening out there. So the little school that I actually went to for primary school, I think the most kids the school ever had from grade 1 to grade 7 in total was 12. It's thriving metropolis. One pub, one school, one teacher, all that. I want to touch on it. I haven't touched on it in other podcasts, but our hero in that region growing up was Danny Peacock, who just passed away.
Wow. So,
Danny Peacock was the first guy from, west of the Maranoa, the river that kind of runs across the Warrego Highway, to make it in Sydney, to go to Western Suburbs.
Yeah.
And he played with my uncle in Charleville, or Auguthella at the time, actually. And he came back for a wedding, and I remember being probably, 8, 9, 10 years old at this wedding, and shy kid in the corner. I had my card, the little chewing gum cards, and I was just staring at him all night, like some sort of creepy little kid in the corner. And eventually I plucked up the courage to go over there, and he signed me card and really encouraged me. And the next one after him was a guy called Adrian Vowes. And they both, and they both actually, in many ways, made their careers here. Vowes, he played a game for Queensland in Origin, but if I talk about Danny Peacock and Adrian Vowes in Australia, you'd have to be a real rugby league badger to kind of know the depths of their careers. Over here, I get to talk about it anywhere really. Anyone from Bradford, anyone from Castleford, they know exactly who those players are. And on the day that I found out Danny had passed, we were playing Halifax at Odsal. And, to be able to, I got there a bit early and took a few moments and kind of went down and just, he was a very special guy to kids like me in that community. And growing up, rugby league, like you said, it is still the religion. It is what you talk about. It is what you do, in the dirt, in the dust. That's all you think about. It's all you talk about.
Danny Peacock was one of the original players that set off the Bullmania thing, wasn't it?
I grew up on the mean terraces of Odsal as a Bulls fan in those lofty heights that we had back then. And Danny Peacock was probably one of my childhood favourites. The guy was incredible. I still to this day, I don't think I've ever seen somebody hit a ball at the speed that he used to hit a ball at.
Courageous, mate. And he played a lot more fullback in Australia than he did in the centres.
Yeah.
And you'd see him off the back fence. Unbelievable. And he played in some shitty teams in Australia too. And so, the courageous approach that he took, was highly noted.
Can I dig into this a bit more? Because I'm a huge Danny Peacock fan.
I've got all day, mate.
I'm a huge Danny Peacock fan. What was his career like then in Australia?
I've got some records for you. And
go on. I'd love to hear him because I only know his career from his Bradford days, really.
Right. Now, I might get this one wrong, but I put this one on Joel Kane when I was back in Australia, right? And this is one of my little stats that I said because he loves his stats and stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, who's the highest try scorer for the Gold Coast Seagulls? History of that club before it was the Titans and Chargers and all that. Well, it's Danny Peacock, right?
Right.
Now, which player has the lowest win percentage of any professional player to play over 100 games in, NRL or New South Wales rugby league history? It's Danny Peacock. So there's a couple of stats there that'll probably never get broken.
No.
Because he played for West Suburbs when they were really struggling. And then he made the jump to the Gold Coast Seagulls when Wally was there. So Wally did 2 years, 91, 92 at the Gold Coast Seagulls. And Peacock jumped over with him there. And I think Vowsy may have even made his debut in that same team at Seagulls there. Maybe. I might be off there, but he ended up at the Cowboys in 95.
We were talking off air about some of the golden days of the 90s, like the Test series and things like that.
I'm obsessed.
I mean, I when I got into rugby league when I was at primary school and we used to watch the NRL, and you mentioned the Gold Coast, they had some torrid times in the mid 90s.
Yeah,
and
they did.
They went bust, didn't they? But Wally Lewis played for you. The Peacock played with the Gold Coast, one of your go-to teams then?
No, I've actually been a Panthers tragic since I was a kid because, I know you look at me and you think, oh, it's a young man, but I outdate the Brisbane Broncos, right? So they didn't come into New South
Right.
Wales footy till '88. Same year the
So were you like the Royce Simmons?
Greg Alexander's my
yeah.
hero. Yeah, Greg Alexander's my hero. And again, met him for the first time when I was down at Penrith in April.
Because I remember in the 90s, was it Ben Alexander that tragically
92.
died?
Yeah, 92. And it really derailed the club. They were a very tight-knit team.
But they were really good because
they won the premiership.
But did they not go to? Did they play Wigan at Anfield in the World Club Challenge
in '91? And Mark Geyer famously lost his passport before they got on the flight. There was a few that lost their passport.
Right.
The day of the flight over. Yeah, Wigan rolled them at Anfield in '91. Yeah, good memory, mate. Well done.
Well, what a great way to start the show that was. Paying tribute to a legend of the sport. So Clint, that was your introduction to rugby league with your baseball card, as you put it back then.
Yeah, footy card.
Yeah, footy card. So did you play as a junior or?
Mate, the nearest club to me was Mitchell Magpies. That was about I'd say a 45-minute to an hour drive, from the farm. Mum and Dad didn't have the money a lot of the time, so the ability to get to games was a real struggle for us. So I was lucky though that the coach of that team was a guy called Byron Kelly, who passed away a couple of years ago too. Well, he used to train the kids, on a Tuesday, I think it was, afternoon, and Mum would just show up a bit late to pick me up from school, so I'd get to train every week, but I didn't get to play every week. And I also, I just looked up to the bloke. He played Queensland schoolboys in rugby league and cricket, and again from our area where that just doesn't happen. And so Byron Kelly had a real effect on me as a young bloke, getting me to fall in love with both cricket and rugby league. I always thought I was going to be Greg Alexander, but I'm slow, I'm big, I'm fat, I can't kick for shit, and can't hit anything with a pass either. So I ended up going down the cricket route, later on in life. But I was lucky enough to go to boarding school in Toowoomba, which again is a big boarding region. It's kind of the gateway into Brisbane. It's about an hour and a half from Brisbane, so more boarding schools per capita than anywhere else in the country. A lot of rugby union, a lot of rugby league, a lot of cricket. Jonathan Thurston, he kind of did his time in Toowoomba, as did Steve Price, if you remember Steve Price, captain of the Bulldogs and Warriors back in the day. So I was lucky to go to boarding school at a young age, and then you can play everything, and I did. I played everything. If there was any chance to get out of a class to play, mate, I'd do anything except yoga, basically. Just can't touch my toes then, can't do it now. But I just loved it. Boarding school was the best time of my life, and that allowed me then to kind of, be more involved. So, be able to play footy, be able to play cricket, play basketball, play volleyball, play tennis, play everything. I had all these resources at my hands that I never had as a kid. And, I was never good enough, but I loved it.
I take it you went down the cricket path. Then did you play semi-pro?
Yeah, semi-pro, mate. So I wasn't good enough to break the high levels in Australia. I was never going to play first grade in Sydney or for Australia.
Yeah.
But there was some clubs over here that were silly enough to give me a chance. So I actually played a few seasons for North London down in the Middlesex comp and loved it. Yeah, I was just a B grade slogger, mate, but I could hit it a long way, and on occasion I got a few in a row.
Talk to me about obviously there's a line from your business somehow into being involved in rugby league management. Where's it start crossing over?
I would say that the first crossover, again, I went to Northern California. So I finished boarding school, and I thought I was going to be a basketballer for a while, right? So again, I was in search of
and the cricket.
Mate, I was in search of belonging anywhere. If I could get a ball involved and get a chance, that's probably why I'm over here, mate. I've always been in love with sports, and I thought, I'm going to go over. I'm going to be a basketballer. I'm the next Michael Jordan. I have to be. Mate, I arrived. I went to my first training ground. I thought, oh, geez, I'm so far off here. It's scary. but I got laid for the first time in my life, so I didn't want to go back to Australia. This was in Northern California, and I thought, well, I'm going to stay here, and I did. So no one was going to give me a basketball scholarship because I was awful. But I started my first little business, and I did olive orchard management. So I maintained olive orchards, and I'm a kid from a cattle farm, so I'm handy on tractors and fixing things, and kind of a problem solver, I think, is my skill set.
Right.
And started a business there. Did that for a couple of years. It went okay. Moved back to Australia. Bought an indoor sports centre. So I bought an indoor cricket centre in Toowoomba. Action Arenas, it was called, and I made every mistake a young businessman can. I was more worried about the colour of the carpet than I was getting teams playing. How you prioritise things and how you spend your cash and kind of how you focus your attention. And I was very lucky that I went through that. I was 22. And for the first 6 months, I was taken it the wrong direction. Within, 12 months, I was fortunate enough that it turned around. The business turned around. We were starting now to, have success on and off the court. As far as financially was going well. The teams were there. We were the first incorporated indoor cricket club. So, we were able to tap into some kit supplying grants and get sponsors on board and sort of steamroll that. And then I got an offer from a competitor. They wanted to buy the business, and I thought, geez, that sounds like a lot of money from the kid from the bush. I'm in. So I sold that, and that's where I got the opportunity to come to England and play a bit of cricket.
I was thinking, where is all this going? I mean,
I'm still trying to figure out where it's going, mate. Yeah,
you're about rural background. You got your orchards in America. I'm thinking, yeah, farming in North Yorkshire. I can see that link. I thought, you're talking about how you built up. I'm not going to say an empire. Maybe it was an empire. A sporting business. So you've definitely got the background to build a sporting organisation that just doesn't involve just a team. No. It involves everything else that goes on.
And I coached as a kid too. So like when I was in boarding school, you want to make a bit of pocket money. Well, you go coach basketball. You go coach touch footy. You go coach cricket. Like they're pocket money jobs, and I've been doing those since I was in grade 10. So you do learn some leadership and you do learn some, some skills, maybe not by design, but by default. Like I didn't, at no point did I sit down when I was a kid and go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to own a rugby league team in the north of England and we're going to do X, Y and Z. That was never, it was never an imagination that was that big. I just wanted to play.
Yeah, I just want to be involved. Sat in a podcast studio in Wolverhampton.
Well, it's nice. It's nice to know that I've reached those peaks, mate. So but it's great. And I'd say that the journey from there, I met a girl. So I met a girl, and she was silly enough to spend time with me for over a number of years, and we ended up getting married. I moved to Florida. So she was an American girl. I moved to Florida, and that was in 2009. And sadly, the marriage didn't work out, but that's how I ended up in America. And again, I had to get creative. Post-divorce, I was really struggling. Without the cricket club there knowing it at the time, and I was managing the cricket club, again, just trying to be involved. I just love, sports.
Yeah.
And we integrated the rugby union club. We got a field next door that was the only place in America privately owned with a cricket field and a rugby field. And, it's all working as a club and a community. Put all that together, and I loved it. And there was no money in it. It's just because you want to see it happen. Yeah, you want to see it happen. But when I got divorced, I was actually living in the clubhouse without them knowing. So there was 3 months on an air mattress where, you go in there at, 9 p.m. at night when everyone's left, you have a snooze, you have a shower the next day, and you're gone before the guy comes to cut the grass. So that wasn't that long ago. 2011. Yeah. So and at the time I still had a business, but I just had no cash. So I look at that as sports has given me everything, mate. It gave me a chance to get out of the country. It gave me a sense of belonging when I needed it in America, and now it's given me a real sense of purpose. I'm very good at turning businesses around. I'm a crisis management guy. You go into scenarios, and I can generally get it right. I can see the opportunity. I can execute the opportunity, putting people and processes in place and getting out of their way. Hire the best, give them what they need, and get out of their way. It's a pretty simple philosophy, but you got to have the right product as well. You can't just put the right processes and people in place if the product's no good. Onto our product, I think rugby league is the greatest sporting product in the world. I'm obsessed with it. It's a high-speed collision sport.
Speaking to Matt Roberts, from Widnes, and what we were saying that first and foremost, I believe in the championship, people who are involved are just fans of rugby league. They just want to see it grow and grow and grow. We haven't necessarily got these big benefactors in the championship that you would like, but you've got to have that want to make rugby league succeed from the roots, for want of a better term.
Yeah, you build the pyramid from the bottom up. You got to have it all right down there.
But you're not one of these owners that have just got it all there and ready to plough it in. You know how to grow things from the bottom up.
Yeah, well, again, I'm not some multi-millionaire that can just throw cash at an idea and hope that it works out, right? Like when I took over York, I said, and it's on all sorts of interviews and fan forums and all that stuff. We are not going to increase our budget on players. We are going to increase our budget on the commercial areas and the opportunities. And that's when you talk about why I came to York and not other clubs, you know, like we were talking about the Toronto stuff earlier.
Yeah.
So I invested in Major League Rugby in the States as a passive investment. But, you know, my skill set was crisis management, and the Wolfpack needed a lot of help. You know, this was 2019. And somehow, through friends of friends, I got connected with the Wolfpack, and they approached me and said, right, yeah, we want you to come have a look and get involved here. I looked at it for, I think, 2 weeks, and I couldn't touch it. It was too far gone. You know, it just was.
Yeah.
And I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not going to say as to why. Like, it just was. It wasn't for me. It wasn't the right opportunity or the right time. It was just had progressed into a hole so far that you would have to pump so much money in just to get it back to zero that it didn't make any sense, right? And you know,
well, signing Sonny Bill probably didn't help.
Well, and exactly right. And you know, they thought that on the back of a big signing on the field that all their commercial problems would go away.
Yeah.
That's not the case. When that didn't work out and the Wolfpack folded during COVID, one of those employees came to do some work at York, and he just cold called me. You know, he just picked up the phone and said, look, I was in some of those calls. Some of the things you said I agree with. York's a different sort of opportunity. It's not living beyond its means. It's got, you know, this new stadium's about to open up. It's an affluent city. Kind of, he told me all the things that, you know, made it sound viable.
Yeah.
And you know, fast forward, 4.5 years later, I'm sitting in the studio talking to you about it.
It's viable, but that doesn't mean that it's all there ready to just go and it's going to be a success.
No,
You're still going to build things.
Well, it's never done. Like, that's what you have to understand. It's never done, you know. We're talking about Redlinski's interview. I quite enjoyed, you know, how open and honest he was in that podcast this week. They're never done, you know, and the best ones never are. They never rest on their laurels. You know, they're going to Paris. They're trying to be different. They're trying to grow. They're trying to exceed their own expectations. And, you know, your goals are constantly shifting as long as your direction doesn't, you know, if that makes sense. Like, and for us, it's just about those incremental gains, you know, those incremental increases. So as our commercial grew year one, well, we'll invest a percentage of that in the women's game. We'll invest a percentage of that in the men's game. We'll invest a percentage of that back into commercial. Let's get another commercial person. Flows and flows and flows and flows, and a tick, 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 tick. And none of our commercial stuff is done on the back of results. We don't go into a business and go, we're top of the table, give us some cash. Like, you know, it's not friends, family and favours. Like, we go in there and we learn about their business. We want to know what their demographics are. We want to know what they're trying to achieve. And if it doesn't, you know, turn out that we have a role to play in that, we'll just invite them as a guest and not try and sell them anything, you know. And they might become a hospitality fan, not a partner, which is fine. You know, it's still growing the game and growing the game and the brand. When you go in and you learn about someone's business, you might be thinking, oh, I'm going to sell them some signage in the stadium, you know. Mate, do you think Nestle's brand exposure is going to increase because we have a sign up at York Stadium? Like, are we that dumb and arrogant? You know, seriously, you know, like Land Rover, they're a massive partner of ours, right? On the front of our kit, you know, they look after us with cars. Like, they're incredible. They're a massive partner. Lloyd Motor Group, you know, they're so strong. Starting in Carlisle, they're right throughout the northeast. We're not going to increase their brand either. But what we can actually do is put them in a room with people who drive Land Rovers, because it's York. You know, there's a different affluence to it. So they're going to up their deal again this year. Well, fingers crossed. You know, they'll up their deal again this year because we've exceeded our promises as far as number of cars sold directly through the relationship.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's about having a strategy for their business, not just yours. And so that's why I don't hire a lot of people from within rugby league, because they do tend to come from this background of, well, they're a fan, they'll buy it because they're a fan. And that's not a strategy, you know, because it's not sustainable. You know, you've got to bring some value. You've got to bring something that people want and enjoy and that they can justify, not just, oh, good blokes, go have some fun.
I was just going to flip it all the way back before we dive into York a little bit more. And I know you weren't really involved in it, but just want to get an idea of where you land on sort of expansion of rugby league. So the Toronto idea, what was your original thoughts on it? Did you always think it was a bit of a crazy idea, or
no?
Do you think it was brave of rugby league?
I think there was a lot of dominoes that probably fell at difficult times. And let me say this, right? The French deals had a big influence on how the Toronto deal was done. So
Right.
I think when the French, when Catalans entered the competition, it was a very favourable deal to Catalans. And, fast forward however many years it was to where Toronto came on the scene, I think that there was a lot of people of decision-making ability, whether it be the RFL or Super League clubs or whatever, it was before my time. They probably looked at the lessons from the French deal and said, well, we can't do that again.
Yeah.
And the deal that was done for Toronto was heavily in Toronto's disadvantage. So the two deals were actually miles apart. They weren't this is an expansion process. This isn't what we do. This is how we do it, and it's been successful. It's like, well, we're not doing that again. If they want to come in, they'll have to do X, Y, and Z. And I think that there was probably some eager naivety on the Toronto side of things, as far as, we'll figure it out later. Let's go make a splash, splash, splash. Big signing, Sonny Bill. We got the most interactions online, in the history of the game. Great. How did you quantify that into cash and growth? In a world where we do focus a lot in engagements, and I'm sitting here because of it, right? Like, you've got to be active and you've got to be accessible. It's still got to make sense. It still has to be quantifiable. It has to go from to your back pocket to then into the the areas that it needs to be in the business. So I don't know if Wolfpack had that process quite thought through.
Right. Can I just ask you a question just while we're on the Wolfpack thing? When it happened, trying to explain to loads of people that I know about why we've got Toronto win and stuff like that, but all you had to do is just switch on the TV and see for one of the first few games they had 8,000 people. Yeah. People in North America are just mad about the sport. Put a club down in Cornwall, you're lucky to get 300 people for the first few games, aren't you? Yeah. So looking at the fact that you've got eager people wanting to watch sport in North America, do you think that had some things happened a bit different, that we could still have had a Toronto?
I think there's massive opportunity in the north of America, but we've got to figure out what we're bringing them into first. You know what I mean? There's just so many goalpost shifts in our sport here that it becomes very difficult to be strategic. The truth is that, like a club like us right now, where I feel we have a very strong chance, if not a likelihood, of being in Super League next year, I took that gamble 3 months ago to start recruiting and on field and off field for that. That's a big gamble. At the time we didn't know if it was 12. We didn't know what the structure of the league was going to be. Is it still going to be IMG grading? Mm-hmm. How are we going to be? Hopefully that gamble pays off. And it's not a financial gamble. It's the fact that you're gambling with people's careers, and it's not just players. It's coaches. It's everyone's. Like when you say, hey, we're doing this, these are the risks, and you got to tell them. Like when we sit down with Paul Vaughan, first thing I said with Paul Vaughan is, look, mate, there's no guarantees here. Like we may not be in Super League next year, but these are the reasons why I think we will, and they're evidence-based reasons. They're not opinions. Like this is where we sit in the IMG stuff. This is where we are going to be as a minimum on the score. I don't know where everyone else's scores are going to be. I have no clue, but we feel that that's going to put us in a position to be able to do X, Y, and Z, and then this is how we operate. This is our culture. This is our playing group. This is our coaching staff. Do you want to be a part of it? Oh, by the way, have you ever been to York?
Yes, I have, mate. Yeah.
And everyone goes, I like York, and so it's yeah.
It was just a shame with the Toronto. I mean, going back to it, when Toronto was happening, there was enough people that were knocking the whole thing, saying this isn't going to work. Why are the RFL investing all this money into? Why can't they invest it in grassroots? But the RFL weren't investing a lot of money into it, were they?
No.
So for me, it's just a shame that they're still not. Because can you imagine, like last year at Vegas, if it was Toronto versus Wigan at Vegas, I think that would have just been a right shot in the arm for our game.
And here's the thing that the Americans get well, is that it's sports and entertainment. So, they're getting crowds of 5,000, 8,000. I'm not sure what their biggest crowds were, but they had that tailgate effect. People were coming out, and they weren't there because they're rugby league fans. They're there because they're sports and entertainment fans. They put on a show. It was a great day out. It was great for family. It was great for the newcomer. It was great for the sports lover. They nail that. That's what the Americans do well, like sports and entertainment. They do it better than anyone in the world. But there are different elements, right? So every time I bring a player over from Australia, like Toa Mata'afa, right? So Toa's played, NRL 9s. He's been in France for 2 years. Comes here, his first game for the club, he's thrown straight into the hot pit. We're playing against Bradford in a 1895 Cup semi-final. He's at fullback. We're all doing this. Let's hope that this bloke's got it in him, and he does. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking about it. But I could see his eyes. The first 5 minutes of that game were like this, going, what are they singing about? What's this noise? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, in Australia, State of Origin, there's a different sort of chant goes around, but it's not that energy. It's not that atmosphere. Like, the crowds actually lead the entertainment here. Yeah. Whereas in the States, the entertainment's led to the crowd. It's driven to them and they respond. Whereas here, the crowd is the entertainment. And to me, it's probably a matter of getting a little bit of that balance when the crowd's not into it. How do we lift the energy? How do we sort of step into those, dead air spaces? But it's a fine balance, because if you do that too much, the crowd go, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, I was at Vegas, and the Wigan fans, they made so much noise, and I was sat with Aussies all around me. They were like, what's going on here? Like,
it's amazing.
They didn't get it. And then it was about halfway, it was just as the Canberra game was about to start. I think the Canberra fans and the Wigan fans, they formed an allegiance. It was like all of a sudden, right, we're forever bonded, these two teams now, and the atmosphere was just something else. I don't think I've ever really experienced something like that in sport before.
Yeah, and if you ask me, like, my early memories, it is at 3 a.m. with my older brother getting me out of bed, sitting a foot from the TV, watching these Kangaroo Tour games where it's foggy and there's these chants going on and there's this white ball, that's flying through the air. It looked like a bar of soap. We had this dirty old
brown ball Steedens back then.
Yeah. Kicking them's like kicking a lead balloon, and these beautiful mitre balls floating, and it's this crowd and it's this environment, and it just seemed so mystical, and it seemed larger than life, and it was. That's the truth. Like, those days, it was larger than life. I don't think I'd be sitting here with you guys today if it wasn't for, my brother going, come on, we're going to watch this at, 6 years old.
Well, roll it back to York. We're a bit all over the place here, right? But let's go.
You got to tame me in.
You landed in York in, was it 21, 22, something like that?
Stepped off the train station December 21st.
What did you think of the train station, by the way?
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. Train station December 21st. Deal was done January 10th. I did come during the summer in July to do due diligence, and when I stepped off the train, and probably didn't help that I did 10 days in quarantine in a hotel. I wasn't in the best of moods, thinking, what am I doing here? Do I want to north of England? What am I doing? Like, when are you going to grow up? When are you going to grow up? Like, I should probably figure life out at some point. Stepped off that train, dropped the bags at the hotel, walked into the city. It was State of Origin Wednesday. Found a pub, State of Origin on, the first person I ever had a beer with, came and sat with me. I still know him to this day. Met him that day, still know him to this day. He's probably still sitting at that same seat now. And I just thought, what an incredible city. You walk through and then you see the facilities and then you learn about what's going on and the opportunities in the game. Yeah, made the decision in about September, closed the deal in January, and been here ever since.
So, first sort of few weeks, or you've obviously done some due diligence, but, first couple of weeks in the job then, what areas did you notify that, right, we've got to improve in these areas, and what areas were you doing well in? I'm just really interested how you thought of York as a club when you landed there.
Yeah, the playing group was solid, and it was pre-season. So, we weren't going to make drastic changes to the playing or coaching staff. The initial period, that 3 months initially, I just needed to learn.
Yeah.
You go in there and you don't try and have the answers, you try and find the questions. And, for the first 3 months, I didn't actually do anything that was operational dramatically, but I did the heritage numbers. I did the history wall. I wanted to know the history of the club. And, I was hands-on with all of that because I wanted to be able to sit down there and have that conversation with people and, get ingrained. I've got to find out what the DNA is. That's you can have every strategy on earth, but if you don't have that DNA and you don't live, eat, and breathe it, then good luck. So that was the first thing, and then we started to focus on commercial. So halfway through that season, we made big moves commercially. How we did our hospitality, why, hiring people that I thought were going to drive the club forward. And they'd never been in rugby league in their life, and they did an incredible job for us and very successful.
Whenever I've been to York, I mean, you talked about how things look. When I remember last season you go through the turnstile and you're greeted immediately by TV screens that have got York players on them. You got all this, so you just know it's York, and it's all about the initial vision that people see when they walk in, and everything just seems to just fit. I mean, you mentioned about people you brought on board. You brought Andy Henderson on board as coach, and things didn't seem to work out so well. I mean, I know what he's done in other clubs. He's done a fantastic job. Did a fantastic job at London, but then
he did a fantastic job at York too. Like, let me say this, right? We've all got a timeline attached to every role we're in. And coaching specifically, like there's no coach that coaches for 50 years and ends on terms where he goes brilliant, or very few. Hendo in his first year made so many massive contributions to our culture, to our recruitment. That first year, again, we've been in the playoffs 4 years in a row, unless we drop out of where we are now, to below 6.
That's got to be dramatic.
Would be. So we've made the playoffs 4 years in a row. I would say that last year was quite a dramatic run, to get in. But the year before was as well. People don't remember that the year before, Hendo got this massive response out of the lads going into the playoffs. We're sitting at Barrow listening on the radio to make sure a result went our way to get into the playoffs, and then we make the semi. So, well, actually, no, we didn't. We only got in the playoffs. But the effect that he had on the team is still there. If he wasn't a positive to the club, we wouldn't still have him at the club. Like I'm not saying my approach is always right, but I am very much, if you're not on the bus, you're in front of the bus, and he's still on the bus, mate, and he's doing incredible things in the community, what's happening with our development system, the way the community club's now integrated. I'm very proud of it, and he should be too.
Because from the outside in, you don't always see these things, do you?
No, but that's why we make decisions on what we know.
And you've brought Mark Applegarth in. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people at the time were thinking, he's just left Wakefield and they were relegated, and Mark Applegarth, I think he got a bit of stick from, was it John Wilkin or someone? Or someone said, why have Wakefield got Mark Applegarth in?
Probably John Wilkin.
Yeah. Because he's a nobody, but it fits, doesn't it, with York? Mark Applegarth.
Well, and he got the job opportunity at York because of how he carried himself through that year at Wakefield. He never pointed a finger, he never blamed anyone, and he got a response out of those young lads at the back end. Remember that it wasn't just Mark was the only shift in that group. There was a sale going on. They're trying to, get their bottom line to equal a certain amount. Mate, he never made a single excuse. Never made an excuse. And I think they won back-to-back games at the back end of that season, one against Wigan. And to be honest with you, I like how people carry themselves under times of turmoil. It's very easy to say all the right things and do all the right things when everyone's patting you on the back. When it's quite... what would you say? When it's quite confronting and you have to look yourself in the eye and figure out who you really are, that's when you judge someone. And mate, we recruit on that. It's trust over talent. Not saying he's not talented, because he'll rub that into my face next week, but he's a very talented coach. But I trust him more importantly. I think the results are speaking for themselves since he's come on board.
Definitely.
Well, yeah, you're in an incredible place right now, top of the table. Could you have ever envisaged that this year was going to go as well as it has done so far? Yeah? Yeah.
Again, I can show you on my phone that I threw over there the timelines that I did in 2022 for the club. That's why none of our moves are reactive.
Tell us then. Well, when you went into that club... I don't want to know exactly.
You want the nights? I'll grab it.
I want some... Yeah, get it if you want.
Is that all right?
Yeah,
I'll grab it. Give me a sec. Bear with me.
This is the master plan here.
Well, for the first, again, there was 3-year plan, 5-year plan.
Yeah.
And we were talking about what the future holds. Well, I don't know what the future holds, but I can tell you.
Don't think anyone does, do they?
No. I can just tell you what our plan is. Yeah. So this is the Valkyrie timeline, right? So this will be interesting.
Yeah.
We didn't achieve that one. So 2023, 3 trophies. We didn't get that. I think we got 1. 24, 3 trophies. We got 2. But we wanted 4 Rise squad members to come through our system into, the first team. So in other words, development line.
Yeah.
Get that off the ground. Lindsay's done an incredible job with under 19s and the Rise program. We achieved that. So we got 2 trophies in 1 trophy in 24. We're going for 3 trophies. We have the opportunity to get 1 or potentially 2, but a few things that have to go our way. We want 6 players in the England women's team. Yesterday it was announced we got 3. One Rise player to be in the Rugby League World Cup squad.
What do you mean by Rise player?
That's what we call our development squad.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we call our under-19s.
Yeah.
That was the name we gave it back then. 2026, 2027, I'm not going to tell you what those are. So that was the Valks. Here's our juniors again, 2 full-time staff, 2023. 1 part-time development coach, 12 catchment clubs. So in other words, making 12 community clubs, York influenced clubs. So we're going there trying to give them support.
What does that look like then? Financial support or just coaching support or?
I would say all of the above, depending on which club needs.
Right.
So more than anything, it's about having a presence there. So going there, showing them support, coaching the coaches, whether it be supporting their auctions. They're always doing fundraisers. So what can we give to help them on whatever they need? And that stuff is what Hendo and the foundation do incredible work with, But we've got to, I've always said you've got to give before you get. And so for me, it's like we've got to go to those clubs. They're not, it's not their responsibility to come to us. We've got to go there. We've got to make sure that they're fans of what we're doing, and then hopefully one day they'll be a fan of what we are.
Yeah.
So 24, 25, 3 full-time staff. I haven't achieved that, so that's a miss. That was 25, 3 full-time staff.
That doesn't mean that you're failing. It just means
Correct.
that next year this is what we've got to do.
And here's what I'll say. If you achieve all your goals, you're not really setting them high enough, are you? So, all right, here's the Knights one. Let's have a look here. Finished top 4, 2023. Didn't do that. We finished 5th, I think. 10 Super League ready contracted players, I'd have to go have a look and see.
You're going back to like last year, you're saying about 2024. I mean, you had a horrible start to the season. We've talked about it on the podcast before. And then, but then you had that rise. And even though you might have finished 5th, people could see that rise. I mean, you got to the semi-final or the semi-final?
I think we're in front of Wakefield with 15 minutes to go in the semi, and don't get me wrong, they were deserved winners of that semi-final, but we were in the contest and that crowd was pretty quiet for a period of that game. And, the match got away from us in the end. But, 24 we had written down here, and this is from 2022, win championship, that didn't happen. 15 Super League ready players, well, we'll find out if they're ready hopefully next year, right? And then 15 future leaders contracted, so that's guys who are, 19 to 22, where we see leadership qualities in making sure they're a part of our squad and they're learning from the likes of Akuma Tai, Paul McShane. They're incredible leaders, those guys. 2025, I won't tell you what I've got written down there. 2026, I need to have a squad that is 3/4 Super League competitive. And then 27, I won't tell you.
Challenge Cup?
No, mate, it's incremental, isn't it? So when the opportunities come, we just got to make sure that we're ready, and that won't change whether it's 10 days or 10 years. Just be better.
Be better, yeah.
Just be better.
Right, so we've got to talk about, obviously, the position York are in at this moment in time. You sat at the top of the championship table. I think I'm guessing from speaking here, you're a fan of the IMG grading system, am I right? Or it's not perfect?
I think it's important to have teams and clubs looked at from more than just a performance standpoint. If we're going to take our sport to new heights, we have to make sure that everything's in place.
Yeah.
Not just recruitment. I think that the commercial limitations of some of the decisions that have been made for the sport over the last 20 years put us where we are today as far as, financial restraint. I don't think there's been enough emphasis put on what the product is as opposed to how it's played. It's limitless in how it can be portrayed, right? Everyone's got their opinion on how it should be shown and how it should be, promoted and how it should be marketed. But for me, there are some very simple templates out there in professional sports that we could probably look at and go, geez, that's working. Why is the 100, which has only been around for 5 years, got 900 million coming in investment out of 5 of the 8 clubs? Why?
Well gone then, why?
I'm a massive fan of the 100.
Why?
What's the 100 doing different to rugby league?
Well, they did it as a start-up, didn't they? So they didn't have all the tribalism that was attached to it, and it was very unpopular with the county clubs at the time. Remember that? So the guys that are now putting their hands out and getting paid by the 100, they didn't want the 100, right? So I would say that what they did is they went, we believe in our product. We're going to back our product in any market. We're going to pick the markets where there's the biggest growth potential. And they did that. And they executed it. And they targeted a non-traditional rugby league audience. Sorry, non-traditional cricket audience. 5 years later, they're going pretty well.
I had this debate with somebody on Twitter the other day, actually, saying, like, how the 100 hasn't worked and all the rest of it, and it hasn't brought new fans to the game. And I sat there thinking, well, I'm one of them, because I've watched cricket, but I'm not a huge cricket fan. I went to the 100 the first year to Birmingham Phoenix with my missus. She bought into it. I bought into it. Absolutely loved it. I had no association with Warwickshire Cricket Club. Absolutely none whatsoever. I just went. It was this new franchise team. It was exciting to watch. And
did you have a good time?
Yeah.
What do you remember about the day?
The cricket was good, but...
Do you know who won?
Yeah, Birmingham.
What was the score?
No, I can't remember the score.
Who scored the runs?
I know the Phoenix won, and they won in the last couple of balls.
But it's not.
But it wasn't that. It was the event.
It was
the day out.
Correct.
We went for a meal before. Went to a couple of pubs on the way to the ground.
Yep.
Enjoyed the cricket. The cricket could have gone either way, just as you've said. And bands on outside the ground. The razzmatazz.
Yep.
It's everything that Super League set out to be in the early 90s, I think.
Do you think, just sort of linked to this, there's the whole thing at the moment about, is Magic Weekend working? I mean, we've spoken about Chris Radlinski. He said that Magic Weekend, it needs to be different. Something needs to change. It shouldn't just be year-on-year Magic Weekend. Is that why some people are saying that maybe we need to replace it with the nines because it's something different?
Oh, there's a few different questions in that one. There's a few questions in that one. We'll look at Magic Weekend as it is. I think it's important to make sure that things are fresh and improved every year. Get better at your job, right? Everyone's got the same job in this sport, whether they're a player or not. Get better at your job. I can't compare what Magic Weekend has been over a decade because I haven't been around here that long. I'll ask you guys: has it improved? Has it become a different spectacle over the last 5 years, or is it more of the same?
From my point of view, I mean, I've only ever been to the ones where Widnes have been in, which is about 4 or 5 times, and I just loved it because it was just an event every year.
Or was it the same side event?
It's not changed, though, has it?
Yeah,
it hasn't changed.
I think that's what Chris Radlinski was talking about.
It's not a bad event. It's, like sometimes you got to put new ornaments on the Christmas tree,
Yeah.
Do something a bit different. Tweak something, try something. And we've got to make mistakes as a sport. I think we worry so much that we're going to get something wrong that we don't do anything, which is destined to be wrong.
But do you think in rugby league or maybe in British rugby league we're guilty of, it's just not working, let's throw it, let's just do something completely different, a bit gimmicky?
Would you say that they make too many changes?
I would.
Yeah,
I would.
We've commented before that we seem to have these restructures like once every year or once every other year.
And a lot of 3-year plans.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like we talked on off air about the good old 90s with the tours, Great Britain versus Australia.
It's no longer practical.
We tried to bring back Great Britain the other year, even though it was just English players with a few Australians. And we've binned it after 1 year because it didn't work. It's like I'm a believer that the county not the county championship, but the War of the Roses, we brought that back a few years ago. Did it for 1 year, didn't work. So let's not do it again.
And again, I can't talk about what the governing body or other clubs should be doing. I'll just talk about some business principles I have. Any change that you make, I always say that we don't even look at it until after 90 days. So if we do something on a match day that we tweak and it doesn't seem to be working that first time we do it, well, we're going to keep doing it for 90 days, and we make that commitment before we actually start. Unless there's something drastically wrong, where you're going, oh, geez, this is a really bad idea. Let's see it through the 90 days. Let's see what that trend is, how long it's taken. And, with hospitality businesses that have had bars and restaurants, if you're going to do something, you do it for 90 days because first week, everyone's always negative about it. It's like, oh, we had big expectations. It hasn't come through. It's not working. Just easy, go, keep going. Keep going and see if we can train the consumer. And see if they actually do like it. See if it takes a couple of years for you to go to a 100 game, and when you do go, geez, that was all right.
Isn't that what Derek Bowman did? Isn't that what Derek Bowman did with the Lee Leopards? Everyone hated it. Now everyone loves it because they've given it a chance.
Hey, they've bought into it, haven't they? He did not stop doing it because it was unpopular, and now it's an identity.
And the Magic Weekend for me, I think it needs to stay, but it needs to change. Not get rid of it. It needs to change somehow. Do something different about it. I don't know what that is, but it's an event. A lot of people around the United Kingdom know about this magic weekend at Rugby League. They might not know the ins and outs of it, but they know it as
it's one of the few concepts that the NRL has stolen off the Super League.
Yeah.
You know, like there's obviously merit in it. And let me tell you, Newcastle is a great weekend away, isn't it? So I don't think you've got to convince people that it's a good place to go. I think it's maybe we try and do a lot of different things, and we always seem very, what would I say? I find it surprising that, like, after the Challenge Cup or after the grand final, within a week, tickets for the next year are on sale at discount. I always find that really interesting. Like, if something was going to sell out, you're not going to discount it. You know, they didn't discount the Ashes tickets. And it just shows to me, like, it just feels like there's no faith that there's actually going to be an audience for this, so we've got to try and, you know, be a price-driven thing. It's never cost, it's value. You know, like people's wallets don't make decisions based on cost. They make it on value. So if we focus on getting our value proposition right to the consumer audience instead of trying to come in from a cost-effectiveness standpoint, I do think that would put us in a different mindset. I think it would allow us to be a little bit more, right, how do we increase the value on this ticket? Instead of trying to take it from 20 quid to 10 and get twice as many people.
Yeah.
How do we give them 100 quid's worth of value for a 20 quid ticket to where next year they're buying it straight away because they don't want to miss out? Like I sometimes wonder if we're just a bit, I don't know.
Have you got any ideas, Clint?
I'm trying to just
I know you're sort of very methodical person, but you know, off the bat, just knocking a few ideas. We're in the pub right now.
We have so much work to do in our own backyard at the moment. I think it would be weak of me to go out there and throw too many darts about what we should be doing because I just need to get what I'm trying to do right first. And it's very easy to be critical of everyone, isn't it? Like, you know, people can be critical of me and they might have some really strong points and some validity on that too. For me, it's just discussion. You know, like, are we value focused or are we cost focused? If we're cost focused, why? You know, if we're value focused, well, then we can start to go, well, how do we increase value? Where are our partners? How do we draw in? How do we make sure that our commercial partners for the sport are not just being advertised, but they're being engaged and they're being put forward in the right ways? And, you know, it's a very... Are you familiar with Dwayne Bennett? No? Dwayne Bennett, right?
No.
So here's one of the most unique and successful collaborations I've seen in rugby league, right? And it's the Dolphins. So when the Dolphins started out, they got the great Wayne Bennett as their coach, right? And so their partner, I think it's Budget Direct, sorry. They came up with this concept where we're going to create a fake character called Dwayne Bennett, who's Wayne Bennett's cousin, right?
Right, okay.
And he has a separate Instagram page called Dwayne Bennett, right? And Dwayne Bennett he's the fins up guy. He brought that in, like, you know, all these things that are starting now to become a part of the Dolphins' DNA. And it has been one of the greatest partnerships in rugby league history. It's Budget Direct driven. You know, they have this fake character who pretends that he's been talking to Cuzzy Wayne about, you know, who's in and who's out on the weekend, and I gave him a bit of guidance on who should be picked at fullback this week. And, you know, it's brilliant. It's brilliant, and it's fun and it's entertaining. It's not informational and critical and heavy. Like, it's just brilliant.
Yeah.
And it works. Why can't we be innovative? Like, the cost of that is bugger all.
And it's modern. It's modern society.
It's fun.
Going back to my club, do this every time, but I turn up and I watch the game because I'm a diehard Widnes fan.
Yeah.
A lot of people these days don't want to turn up on a February Sunday afternoon, freezing nads off for 80 minutes and then go home. They want something different. And like the modern society, all about memes on the internet and like what you've just been discussing, they want something extra, don't they?
Well, and here's the thing, right? If all of our marketing decisions are made for a rugby league audience, how many are being made for a non-rugby league audience? Like, we're giving a shrinking market more of what they want. Great. How do we stop it being a shrinking market? How do we get a non-rugby league person to walk in and go, geez, that was a good day. Like, that was a great day. And I think that it's there for them to be consumed, but how are we attracting them to actually experience it? Because I do think it's there. When people come, they go, that was great. Like, that exceeded my expectation.
Can I just swing this back to IMG then, based on what you're saying? So, IMG is coming. I mean, I think your club, since IMG started, you're pretty well placed anyway, because you're ticking box anyway. But for me, IMG's become, for a lot of clubs in the Championship especially, become a tick box exercise, right? Do you think that's working for York? Do you think it's working for the Championship clubs, or has it become a tick box exercise? And is that geared towards building modern rugby league clubs?
Good question. Do you believe that having your facilities as shipshape as they can be is important?
Yes.
Right. Do you believe that increasing your engagement online and in all facets is important?
Yes, I do.
Yes, it is important, but are we doing it just to get the clicks, or are we doing it because it's going to matter to the supporter?
Well, which supporter does it matter to? Is it taking away from something, or is it giving something new? I don't think it's taking anything away. Some clubs might be doing it as a tick box. I think that they are business principles put on the wall to where you go, are we doing everything we can do here to grow our brand? You know, do you think in the IMG era, let's call it, right? Do you think that engagement has gone up as a sport online, and that more clubs have got their shit together to put their brand forward in a better way?
I think IMG can work. I'm not necessarily in agreement with how clubs are achieving it. For example, we've made fun about Bradford and the 32 inch
I
TV.
think our views are slightly different on this anyway. So
yeah, I think one of the I don't think the areas that are being measured are wrong. I don't think the areas that are being put forward for reflection and strategy are wrong. I think sometimes we just have to look at how they're weighted. You know, I think it's the weighting thing to which ones have certain power, which ones don't.
Do you think it's working for York?
I don't think we've changed much, mate, because those were already the things we were doing.
Is it pushing York, or is it like, well, we're doing it anyway, so we'll just keep doing it anyway?
I don't think we've made any super adjustment based on IMG grading. I think what it's done is it's probably highlighted areas that we were underperforming, and we may have topped that up. But it's kind of just been a mirror for us to go, how are we going across the board? But if you look at like when we started to do things a little bit different social media wise, we brought in Joni. She's now working for the 100. So we found this talented girl in radio. She came here. She's our pitch side announcer. Piece to camera, as opposed to, if the club shop's shut at 3 o'clock, well, instead of putting up a post where club shop's shut at 3 o'clock, we go, hey guys, just so you know, like trying to be more interactive. That was before IMG was ever involved. I just thought that that's a nicer way of doing things. It's a unique approach.
Yeah. I think it's given some clubs a bit of a kick up the backside, hasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think
which is good. It's healthy.
Yeah,
because we can't just be that club that just has 8 minutes of rugby, and that's it, and that's all you're paying for. You got to have value for it.
There's nothing wrong with being that club, but don't be that and still expect to be the top of the tree. There's nothing wrong with being that.
Do you think IMG is a good way of working out if you're good enough to succeed in Super League?
I think it depends on what strategy, because IMG is all about what has been. You know what I mean? It's all measurements of past, isn't it? So when you're constantly measuring what has been, that isn't necessarily the benchmark of what should be. So I think it's probably a good, I wouldn't say house cleaning exercise, because that gives the wrong connotation. I think it's been a good reflection on maybe this is where clubs are actually at, and that might show what they need to adjust to lift their ceiling, or it might show that maybe they've hit their ceiling and they're kind of sitting in a certain frame. And I don't think any of that's wrong. I love the Mitchell Magpies, right? Like Mitchell Magpies to my core. Like you love Widnes, I love Mitchell Magpies. Yeah. I don't think they belong in the NRL.
Right.
And that's just me. I don't think they belong in the NRL. I love them. That match day experience, that pie, that post that I stand on, that is as heavy and as loved by me as anything in the sport. I do not think Mitchell belong in the NRL. Probably a cultural shift here is that I think there's some clubs where fans have that sort of passion for their own club and they think they belong in the Super League. I'm like, oh, okay. I just don't.
Yeah. I think I might have mentioned it before. Batley Bulldogs, they had a chance a few seasons,
mate, and one of the great match day experiences.
Yeah,
sorry, mate. Go.
Well, Batley, they had a chance of going to the Super League if they could have beaten Lee. I mean, no one was going to beat Lee in that grand final, but that for me that shows if you dream and if you really want it, you can get there. But I think the chairman has said once before that when we're not trying to get into Super League. So Batley are quite content with it, and I think some Championship clubs are. But for me, Championship clubs need, if they want to, they've got to have that they've got to have something to try and aim for. They can't be that cut-off point. So you're going back to my club Widnes. We've spoken off air about when we were champions in 1989. Yeah. Seems like 1889. 1989, and we were cup kings of the 70s and 80s. That's what we hold on to. We've been there. We've done it. So do you not think that some clubs shouldn't be dreaming and shouldn't be given that chance?
It's a good question. I think it's the question. It's the question. It's the promotion, relegation versus franchise model, right?
Yeah.
What are you willing to sacrifice for that dream? That's the question I'll throw back at you, right? The game is starving. Yeah. And I think it's starving because we've prioritised that dream over reality. I think that every player, every fan, every club should have aspirations to win. And for me, the aspiration to win is very different than the aspiration to go to Super League.
Yeah.
Like, we've had 3 clubs win it that are currently in that competition since '96. Like, tell me about the dream again.
Yeah.
How many of these dreams have become realities where they've won it?
Well, not won it, but if we think about the last few seasons, Leigh Centurions were in the Championship. I mean, they've had a benefactor. They've gone up. They've won the Challenge Cup fairly quick after.
How did they get into Super League that first time? Not first time. How did they get into Super League in 2022? Or 2021?
Franchise model back then, wasn't it?
Through Toronto, not succeeding.
And how did they pick Leigh to go in there?
I'm not actually sure.
It's a grading criteria.
Yeah.
Right? And that same grading criteria is probably what they're going to put forth for 13th and 14th. They looked at a number of clubs, including York at the time. They looked at a number of clubs and said, right, which one of these clubs is most qualified to come up? Right? And they put Leigh in there. Leigh went up there. They got paid their distribution. They came down. They got paid their parachute. Then they got a Super League ready team, dominated the championship to where that season of all the seasons I've been involved with was one where, what are we playing for?
Yeah.
They went up, obviously they went and did what they did in the Challenge Cup final. It was a great story in the game. But I actually go back to the year before they went back to the championship.
Yeah.
They were chosen on grading.
Yeah.
I think that there's something in that.
This is where I think me and Mark slightly differ. I think you're more a promotion relegation man, aren't you? I'm very... I think the IMG model, although might not be perfect, I think there's definitely aspects of it that...
Yeah, well, and let me say this, right? I get labelled as an IMG fan regularly, which is fine. I'm a franchise fan. That's what I'm a fan of. And I think the IMG grading model was really a soft hammer, whereas I wouldn't have taken a soft hammer. I would have gone, these clubs work, because as a sport we need to achieve that. If you're not helping us achieve that as a sport, you don't fit in this realm. Very unpopular, I'm sure that'll be your soundbite for the day, but that's how I feel because I actually think the sport should be more important than the club.
Do you know my opinion is that the clubs possibly have too much say. That's what I think.
I'm glad you didn't put it as a question.
What do you think, Clint?
I think it's time for the next conversation. Potentially.
I think this IMG thing is just going to keep rolling. I mean, when come October, when because it's just before the grand final, the 13th, 14th team is going to be decided off. From what I've heard, I think it's just going to keep rolling then, and then after it's going to keep rolling, and then this time next year it'll be. Well, are we having 2 more teams going in, 2 teams going down? That's where I think we're not quite so good in British Rugby League. There's never this. If we've got a 5-year plan, we seem to change it after 2 years. I think we just need some clarity over that.
We committed to a 12-year plan with IMG, didn't we? How many years ago was that?
2 or 3 years ago. I think we had 1 provisional year, and now we're 2 years in.
Do you think at the end of next season the IMG grading will be the way it's decided?
Have you got a coin and we'll toss it right now? I don't know.
It tells you a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just the fact that that's not a straight yes tells you a lot.
All right, looking at the... I'm trying to skirt around these with being as tactical as I can with these questions.
Look after me when you edit this one, boys, please, I beg you. All right.
Look, we've got potentially 3 Super League places up for grabs at the moment. I think we can fairly say that Salford aren't going to be in the Super League next year. So you may get a Super League spot by IMG grading and you get one of those automatic spot, well, it could be more, couldn't it? Drop out. Anyway, you could make Super League via IMG grading. You could make it via being selected by the committee. What are your views on being selected that way?
I think we have to be very careful about how we talk about 13th and 14th position, because I don't think it's going to be as sporadic as a lot of people do. You know, like my hope is that they use the grading as the framework. You know, like these are the boxes that need to be ticked for you to be in the conversation. And then I think if 13th and 14th aren't getting, let's call it, full distribution, then there should be a review, because the review is, can you afford to be here? And if that's what the committee does, is make sure that we're not just looking at everything from the past 3 years, we're actually looking at what they need for the next year. I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
You know, but if they're throwing the grading out and going, right, well, I think this one and this one for these reasons, and bang, and it becomes a matter of opinion as opposed to data, I think that becomes concerning. But my gut says that isn't what's going to happen. My gut says that those gradings will come in, 13th and 14th will be reviewed to make sure that it is sustainable, that they go in. And if it's not, then it might be 14th, 15th. It might be 15th, 16th. Where is the right decision financially for these clubs?
So would York be sustainable without the distribution?
The commercial, again, we've also got what we need to do it, right?
Yeah.
But the commercial plan, and, you know, I'm lucky enough to have good relationships with clubs that have gone from Championship to Super League, and I've seen how their commercial growth has been affected by that shift, you know, outside of distribution. I'm just talking about these lines of income increasing by this. Different clubs with different strategies as well. And you know, I think whichever club goes up will achieve a certain amount of growth that will be, you know, significant. But I'm also not going to sit on that going, oh, fingers crossed we get that same level of income. We've got to be able to sustain it without that. So that's been a part of our plan all along.
I think that's where IMG should be working, creating sustainable clubs. For me, I've said it before that I don't like the idea of any emphasis being on club owners' input. I've talked about before about owner of Widnes many years ago. We put millions into the club. Then he said he was going to disappear because we had to be sustainable without him, and he did disappear. And it was like, well, what are we going to do now? So these 13th and 14th club, they have to be sustainable, I believe, without the funding. In the next in 2 years' time, they have to be sustainable by themselves. That's where I think IMG should work.
Well, and I think the reality is that everyone talks about the distribution, and don't get me wrong, 1.3 is a lot of money, right? But it's not even going to cover the salary cap. I don't think it's actually going to cover the kit and payroll, you know. So if you don't have your own business plan to be able to get to a break even or better position as a club outside of distribution, and let's be honest, if you're not making those business plans now, it might be too late when this next TV deal comes around. Like if your business plan is always starting with, well, we get 1.3, probably like a lot used to go, oh, well, we get 2.x or we get 3 point whatever. Mate, there's no guarantees that this TV deal is going to be better, the same, right? So your business plan as a club now, if you're strategic and looking beyond 25, looking beyond 26, it has to be, how are we self-sufficient, not just self-sustainable?
Yeah.
You know, you have to be. And then you go, right, are we spending the cap because we feel we should, or are we spending the cap because it's the right thing to do? You know, like you start to look at then, if you're in a franchise model, well, I don't need to spend the cap. I can actually go out and go, right, I'm going to make sure that my squad as an average age is under 25. I'm going to spend this because I believe this is what we've got coming in. I'm going to invest in this youth who have their best rugby ahead of them, and we're going to push over 3 years to where we're competing at the top in 3 years' time. Promotion, relegation, you can't do that. No. You can't take the risk all the time to get it right. You have to get it right now. Oh, and by the way, we've got 2 months to get it right. Yeah. You know, it's too big of a jump. It's too big of a jump from a talent and planning perspective. And then if you do spend it in the championship and get that team, what if Wakefield had lost to York last year and it was promotion relegation? Are you saying that York's ready and that Wakefield isn't?
I think if you have like a 2-year stay of execution, you go up and you've got 2 years to get it right. You've still always got that threat. Well, what if we're bottom? Or someone's always got to be bottom of the league, aren't they?
But I think that the whole strategy is around, we're scared to go down. Where's the strategy to win the thing?
Yeah.
Like, where is the actual strategy to win it? There shouldn't be only 3 teams in Super League that have won it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I look at, like, everyone talks about Premier League. Football is a beast. I get it. So much money, so much international coverage. I get it. It's a beast. Who's going to win the Premier League next year, guys?
Oh, mate, don't look at me.
Well, it's not going to be my team, Everton, I tell you now.
Mate, I've never... Exactly, right? And I don't know... I've never been to a Premier League game, right? Hand on heart, apologies for anyone that might upset. I reckon it might be Liverpool, Manchester City or Arsenal. I don't know, I've never watched a game. Am I right? Probably. We'll find out in 12 or 18 months, won't we? But, like, it shouldn't be that... The discussion shouldn't be about who's coming out. It should be about who's winning it. And I don't think there's enough of that in rugby league. I don't think there's enough of that in football. I don't think there's enough of that in county cricket. I don't think promotion relegation has the discussions and the excitement at the right end of the table. And I know, again, I'm going to get butchered and, so be it. But it's just what I think. The data tells me clubs are going broke, teams aren't winning it, and the game isn't growing. That's what the evidence tells me. And other than the dream or the feelings, I'm yet to hear a real argument for it.
Would you like to see the NRL get involved in Super League? I know there's a lot of ifs, buts, maybes, and all the rest of it.
Any deal, it's like saying, would I like to have dinner with Scarlett Johansson?
Yeah.
On the outside looking in, you go, yes, but what are the terms of that dinner? What are the terms of the deal? It's never the deal itself. So I think it would be naive to go that, yes, I want the NRL involved. No, what are the terms? What are we giving up? What are they bringing? Where's the discussion? What's the longevity? Why?
You keep hearing all these rumours about the NRL getting involved. Was it so that they would come and take over and give us money to take over, or was it to just give us some advice? Or
I don't think the discussions have ever got to that stage, mate. So I think it's all just people's opinions, and they're probably making up their own narrative because there isn't enough narrative. And, I think that's, it's one of the things about being a fan, isn't it? And I am a fan as well. When we don't know, we try and figure it out.
Speculate.
Yeah. So the conversations have never got to that stage. So I don't think there's a plan of what they want to do. I don't think there's ever been that level of discussion. But again, the NRL aren't calling old York and going, so Clint, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. I think you should get involved. Like, no, we're just trying to get our shit together, mate.
Can we talk about French clubs?
Yeah.
Right. So French rugby clubs, there's been, I know again, some of this is hearsay and some of it might be fact, some of it might not be fact. There's been mutterings that, what the French clubs bring to the game now is maybe not you said yourself, is not what it once was. How do you see the French game developing without the involvement of Super League and the British game?
Well, again, we've got to define developing. Are we talking developing as a part of the top tier over here? Are we talking about developing at grassroots? I think you build a bridge from both sides, so you need the development at grassroots, but you also need the success at the top tier of any professional sport, because that's what inspires kids to actually put on a pair of boots and go to the club. So you need both. I don't know enough about the domestic competition in France. I don't. I think it would be, again, daft of me to have too many strong opinions around it. I think for the growth of the international game, there has to be a long-term strategy
for France.
And long-term can be 50 years, it can be 10 years. That's why it's always a nice thing to say long-term. But it does need to be a part of the strategy for the international game. I think when you look at where the international game is right now, the fact that you guys sit up here in the Northern Hemisphere almost as your own, and there's not that nearby rivalry at a certain level, I do think that starves development. I think it starves conversation. I think it starts tapping into new audiences, because the one thing I know, you guys as a people, when I talk about the Brits, if there's a Union Jack on it and they're winning, we're on board, right? So getting more of that opportunity, I think, brings new fans to the game, which means we need a long-term strategy for France and other
I suppose
European countries.
You could divide that into Ireland, Wales,
100%.
Scotland, and the rest of the European nations.
Yeah,
really,
like if you're in charge of the game, right, and money's not an issue, and it's your job to expand the sport strategically. Are you telling me with a 20-year plan you wouldn't look at Cardiff, Dublin, a team in the north, you know?
Well, we've had Super League now for 30 years, and we've had France representation in Super League for 30 years, whether it's Paris or whether it's what we've got now. And people have said that they want a French team in Super League to aid national development. What have France as a country achieved in those 30 years? So we've had a long-term plan, but I think it's been sidetracked by we just got to make Catalan succeed. That hasn't had an impact on the national team, has it?
Yeah, and you know, they're a successful recruitment club, but they're a recruitment club, aren't they? You know, they get a lot of big names out of Australia and New Zealand in particular. And they've had some success. They've got some silverware, and you know they've been in a lot of big games over the last 20 years at least. How does that align with the international game? Well, again, you know, are they building the bridge from both sides? I don't know, or are they just trying to recruit and have success at the top level? I don't know what the development numbers are, kids' participation. I don't know.
I think Catalan are doing quite a lot for the game in France. Actually, they do have a team in Elite One, don't they? Which is the French division. So I do think Catalan as a club is doing pretty well.
As a club, brilliant.
Yeah, but that's not transpiring to the rest of France.
Yeah, how do we get that international team?
And the other clubs aren't doing the same thing. So
and I don't think it is Catalan's responsibility any more than it's, you know, York or Widnes's responsibility to drive players into the England team. You know, Catalan's job is to have the best Catalans can be, right? But there has to be a strategy there for how do we drive that international team, and whether that's from within France, whether it's from within Europe, whether it's from in the sport internationally. It would be nice to have France as a really competitive side.
I used to be not anti-expansionist, but as you can gather, I'm a traditionalist, right? Yeah. I used to be a bit wary of teams from outside the heartlands coming in because it's our sport in the north. But I'm now a lot more of, right, if London are in the team in Super League and they do it the right way, fantastic, I want them in. And the same for French teams. But I'm against this idea we need a London team in Super League. Why do we need London? Has it really done a lot for Sky's figures, London being in Super League? Do we need a French team in Super League? Is it actually... I think we've got to have a vision, but we've got to understand where that vision is taking us. And if we want France as a national team to grow, we need a proper plan, a vision and a plan to get that to happen.
And again, I'm a badger for rugby league, right? Do you guys know about the history and how strong rugby league was in France? Like pre-Second World War and the whole Vichy government and all that. And, you know, why there's a rooster sitting on top of the World Cup. You know, all that stuff. I
forgot why there was a rooster sat on top of the World Cup.
Because the French donated the trophy. They were the ones behind driving the World Cup as a concept. And when was our World Cup? Well, it was, you know, a lot sooner or a long time ago. When was the first Rugby Union World Cup? 87, when Widnes was still winning stuff. You know? I shouldn't. That's going to get me in trouble. I told you I like Widnes. Every time we go there, great fans, great setup, great administrators, great club. I love Widnes. But a
lot of this we go around in a circle and we sort of start talking about how we need to build it from the ground up. So numbers are dwindling in the grassroots sport at the minute, and I think that probably a lot of the problems in the sport boil down to the grassroots game at the minute. What's your strategy at York for growing grassroots rugby, or do you see that as not your problem?
No. Like again, we go back to those timelines, right? Like going out to the community clubs and getting involved and giving resources, giving support, getting attachment, and that helps build our brand. Yeah. You know, the sooner I get a kid that has an interest in the Valkyrie or the Knights, the better it is for our longevity as a club. You know, you're investing in the future of hopefully what is a strong fan base and a proud representation of the region, right? That's very simple, win-win both ways. If you ask me about how do we grow as a sport on a grassroots level, you can't have mass growth on individual touch. So by that I mean, when you guys, again, cricket as an example, when you won the Ashes in 2005, how many kids do you think grabbed a bat and went down to their local, you know, cricket club for the first time? And how many kids said, I'm going to sign up for cricket at school? How many kids took an interest, from the cultural standpoint of how big of a deal that was. Every time I turn on bloody Sky Cricket, it's still 05, I think that you have to have that individual touch that so many I think as a community sport, we do it better than any other sport. I think we are so ingrained in our communities and we have so much pride and so much generosity and connection. We need to have something shiny as well. And I say I know I sound, probably like a fraud when I say this, but my future lies in Great Britain and my future lies in rugby league in this country. I need England to win a World Cup, right? That is my priority. How do we contribute to England winning a World Cup? How do we get that Ashes series win for the first time since the 70s? How do we have that moment to where there's kids that go into school the next day and they're replicating these heroes that they've only just discovered, like I remember second test 1990, Ricky Stewart throws the dummy. He goes, mate, next day at school, I'm throwing dummies everywhere, under the school, running around. The kids are just inspired. You can't just, it's got to be inspirational, it's got to be entertaining, it's got to be memory catching. And I think that we do the community stuff, grassroots, really well. I think Rugby League Cares does their job really well. I think these foundations do incredible stuff. Let's win something shiny. Let's beat the Aussies. Let's beat the Kiwis. Let's win a World Cup. And I think that having that piece to what's already established would really have a massive impact on how many youth and juniors are participating in our sport. Hopefully someday we find out if I'm right.
Well, they look at the Ashes tickets. We've never had a better chance, have we, to showcase rugby league in this country. Although I go back to the last World Cup in the UK, I think was a missed opportunity for this sport. I don't think we capitalised on what was a great World Cup. No, we didn't win it. Participation, the numbers of fans going through the gates, everything was up, but I don't think we got the bull by the horns and took advantage of that. But I also think, I think it was quite complimentary of the grassroots game there. I don't think we are doing enough at the minute. We used to have development officers in this country going into schools up and down the country. We don't have any of that anymore. I see that as quite a big problem.
And when you say we, do you mean the RFL? Do you mean the clubs?
Yeah, I mean the RFL. I think we had RFL governing body, people who they had different areas around the country. They were going into schools to help promote the sport. I know that there are a lot of Super League clubs and Championship clubs that do a lot of good work within their community, but I still think we need to be putting more emphasis on grassroots.
Well, and again, capital helps that, doesn't it?
Of course, yeah.
You can't cut your way to success. You know what I mean? We find savings in the sport. We find savings. That's all good short term, but are we sacrificing what we want most for what we need now? And that's where you go back to what is the business strategy? What is the strategy for the sport? Because if we can't get the capital, if we can't get the finances and the commercial opportunity right, then grassroots will suffer because you're constantly hand to mouth.
Yeah.
You're not employing full-time development officers in let's call it ripple areas. You drop your pebble in Wigan. Well, what's the next area of rugby league domination? How do we take that north? How do we take that south? How do we get to the Midlands? Those have to be strategies led by the league because I don't want to say something wrong here, but York can't come into the Midlands and have a massive impact. We have a region there that we have to impact. A responsibility, that we have to take a hold of in the north, and then moving into the northeast. That's a region where we think, well, it's our responsibility to go there and do some good and to grow the game at that level. I can't compare what it was like 10 years ago. I wasn't here.
In 2000, I think it was round about towards the end of the 2000s, maybe 2008, something like that, we had development officers here in the Midlands because I was involved at the time with clubs when that was happening. And then funding run out. We had coaches coming into clubs, going into schools, getting kids to come to the clubs. Then the funding ran out and it's like, well, where next? And I don't think there's been a lot happened since then in the Midlands. Speaking to people at the weekend, and we're just crying out for some support from the RFL. But then it's money, isn't it? And that's hard to come by. But I'm a massive believer that we've got to get the grassroots right in our country.
Oh, you have to. Yeah, and again, it's the bridge from both ends.
Yeah.
Because if you just focus on grassroots and there's nothing shiny or there's nothing that aspires them or inspires and they aspire to be, like how many rugby league players' posters are on the wall in areas off the corridor. that's an indicator, isn't it? So we've got to get at both ends to build that bridge to success.
Speaking of shiny things and something to aspire, I mean, I was saying earlier on that Dreamers Super League, you're going to have something to work towards.
100%.
You won the 1895 Cup, didn't you?
Yeah.
Ulker won the Challenge Cup. They had a massive celebration in the town. Next day, York, you had your not bus through the city.
We've got a boat,
your boat, and that was. But that's a shiny thing, just showing everyone. Look, we've done this. This is a step we've made.
And we did the same for the women when they won the back-to-back Super Leagues as well. You know, we've got a great relationship with York City Cruises. The boat's our thing now, and there's some stories I'll tell you off air on that day. They were great. Brendan Sandy was definitely man of the day.
Right, okay.
There's some, nothing untoward, but he is a character, that bloke. God bless him.
Clint, what was it? What does it feel like taking a side and then walking out of Wembley?
Yeah, it was pretty special. It probably hit me a couple of days later because I'm probably stupid enough to think that I have to portray an image of strength, and if I'm not nervous and the players aren't nervous, all that sort of stuff. It's all BS, but they're the things that I was trying to portray and be relaxed and hey guys, we've got faith, we belong here, we're going to do well, we play well, we'll do well. 2 days later, mate, I was a hot mess. I was just like, wow, what an experience that was. And what was really funny on the day, and I haven't told this story at all, so, in the royal box where obviously I belong, being an Aussie. 2 seats over to my left, there was Paul Aiken. And obviously their game was played before ours, and it was a nail biter. And I'm watching Paul, this pillar of strength, at kick-off. He's sitting there and he's all big and he's puffed up, and I'm thinking, he's loving this. The crowd's going. They're a great chance. They're favourites on the day. And I'm watching Paul as the game goes on start to, move in a little bit more, and the hands on the heads and body language is going like this. And I'm good mates with Paul. Like, we have a really good relationship. I go to him a lot for advice. And I'm thinking, this poor bugger's going through like the mill here, and I'm sitting there and I'm relaxed. This is easy. Their game ends. He's celebrating like this, and I've got mates that work for KR. They're down in the crowd there, and they're giving Paul this one as well. And it was really cool. And I'm thinking, geez, what a tough day they've had. I'm glad they got that result. Good for them. Little did I know, 80 minutes later, we're in extra time, and I'm there, and I'm all over the place, and there was nothing about me that was strong in those moments. I can tell you, I'm hanging onto the rail like it was literally a roller coaster. In what was a great contest, I wouldn't say a great game. There was no try scored, but it was an incredible contest. I'm just so thankful that those moments have come my way, and I've been able to in some small way be a part of it.
We've spoken about the 1895 Cup before, about
it being
like
your thoughts on it, actually.
Some clubs or some people think it's 1895 Cup, it shouldn't even be at Wembley. But I know I've been there. I remember the day before I got quite emotional, thinking I'm going to go and I'm going to take my daughters to Wembley to watch Widnes. No, it's not the Challenge Cup, but it's being part of the event. And we talk about the Magic Weekend earlier on. For me, when Widnes got promoted, just being part of this event, it was like so special. And I think we need to look after clubs or a Championship and League One and give them their special moment. I mean,
we talk about dreams, don't we?
Yeah.
We talk about dreams, and we talk about humble clubs, or we talk about growing clubs, or heartland clubs having that dream. And I think that Wembley experience is a big dream, and I can tell you firsthand, it's less about what it means to me, and it's more about what it meant to the fans that have been coming for 70 years. And seeing York win at Wembley for the first time. Having only been there and lose to Halifax in 1931 in the Challenge Cup, and then losing to Fev in 21, which I have a story about that too.
It's safe to say that you're a fan of the 1895 Cup, then. I'm
a fan of the Wembley experience for clubs that probably have a limited chance. In the Challenge Cup, but I'm the same way. I feel the same way for the women. I also understand the economics of it. Maybe 3 games is too many, or maybe it needs to be on different days, or maybe it needs to be a part of some different design. But I think having a knockout cup competition where the carrot is Wembley is the dream.
Yeah.
What does it mean? It meant everything.
Alan Coleman at Widnes was all about, you know what, this year we're going to give it a really good crack to get at Wembley. He says, I really want to get to Wembley. I mean, obviously we got beat by York and it was a bit of a damp squib for us in the end, but that was, we want to get to Wembley because our fans they want that big day. Yeah. And I think there should be something for every fan, no matter which club you support.
And anyone who thinks that it doesn't mean something, right? I can tell you, I've had 8 shots at getting to Wembley, right? So for the last 4 seasons, I've had the men and the women in the semi-final. We've only been once. So, you know, to have that heartbreak with the men's and women's, generally on the same weekend too. Thanks for that scheduling. You know, just wanted to go home and buy a dog just so I could bloody kick it. You know, it means so much because when you lose, that's when you actually find out if something means, you know, and those 7 losses, although they don't feel any better, it reinforces to me how much it means to the club, to the players, you know, the heartache, what the coaches go through, what the staff go through. When you come in on Monday and you have that sit-down team meeting in the office, you know, like it's not just the coaches that go home and go, oh, why do I do this? You know, like it's the office manager, it's the commercial people, it's me. You come in and you go, geez, we're mad, aren't we? And then by Tuesday, you're like, right, who have we got this week? You know, and you go again. But
there's more emotion in losing a final, isn't there, than there is in winning 100%. one. I remember going to Wembley the first 2 times when I was watching Bradford. And I remember when we lost the Challenge Cup and like it was devastating. It was like it felt like the world had ended. I know I'm probably overdoing it a bit, but it was terrible. Like especially the manner we lost as well, because we thought we were going to win both of them and we lost. And then when we actually won it,
it's relief.
I felt like the emotion wasn't as high. I think it's a weird situation.
Yeah, it's relief. Like you know, Lindsay and Anfield and I have a really strong, honest, you know, the 2 a.m. phone calls type. You know, we live it, right? We care, and I won't even pretend to say that I care as much as she does. She is all in all the time, and that's why she has success, right? She drives standards on and off the field. When we lost to St Helens on that, I don't think I've ever seen a field goal hit sweeter in the men's or the women's game. Faye Gaskin slotted that thing from about 35 out, and I'm watching that ball sail, and I'm thinking, oh, no. Like, the pain of that next 48 hours was shared by the whole club, by the whole community, and it's not because it's men's or women's or anything like that. It's because it's us, you know, and in many ways, it reinforced that we were doing the right thing. Like that was a pivotal moment for me as you know, a chairman, where I went, right, we've got to keep going here, because if it matters that much to where it hurts so much, we're down the right track. We just got to keep going and keep going. And you know, for the women, that's still a big carrot. You know, that Challenge Cup trophy still eludes us, and that's what drives these special players to go, you know, even deeper.
Can I just ask about your women's team, because we've spoken before about on the podcast that we've bigged York up quite a lot as a Super League club in waiting because of the team's performing well. You got the stadium, but you've also got that women's team. How important is the women's team to York as a process, as an organisation?
You're almost trailblazers in the women's game over here, weren't you? I think some of that's probably even before even you arrived at the club, wasn't it?
Yeah, John Flatman, when he brought Lindsay Anfield in, the whole women's department of the club just changed gears, you know. And then hopefully, you know, when I came in, I wanted to give even more support, and I wanted to really get a sense of identity and a sense of steps in a direction. So, you know, being the first to do multi-year contracts, being, you know, one of the first 2 clubs to pay the women on payroll. You know, maternity leave. I think we did maternity leave as a club before the EFL did maternity leave in their contracts, you know. And the big one and the easy one to turn around and say that was a success, but at the time there was a lot of criticism around it too, was the rebranding to the Valkyrie, you know. Yeah. Getting a female badge on a shirt that I really hope that there's young girls out there that look at it and go, right, well, I'm a Valkyrie. You know, that's what I'm going to be. That's what I'm about. I can see myself in that badge. You know, I can't help what you Brits do as far as knights and, you know, dames and all that stuff, but you can't have a female knight. And so
that makes sense.
To me, it was a very simple thing of, well, if they can't see themselves in the badge, and let's be honest also, like, York City Knights women's or York City Knights ladies team isn't exactly rolling off the tongue, is it? So, York Valkyrie, when we say the Valkyrie, you know exactly who we're talking about. You know what we're about. You know what we're trying to achieve. I take a great deal of pride in that, but you can come up with all the concepts in the world. The heavy lifting and the work is on Lindsay, her players, her coaching staff, the volunteers, and all those people that got that program off the ground before Lindsay arrived. Like, that takes a lot of effort, that decade beforehand, just to get it established, just to get it to where you got a team turning up every week, before it was on Sky, before there was, something more there as far as payment and things like that. Like, that's an incredible effort. Like, there's no, any one of those dominoes don't fall, well, we're not where we are. So while I am proud of it, I'm also, very aware of what got us to where we are.
Next season, let's envisage it, York in Super League. What are you going to do for that first game of the season? How do you progress from being... we've had Derek Bowman with Lee and the Super League ready team. We had Wakefield last year, preparing a team ready for in muchness for Super League. Mm-hmm. York, are they ready right now to be in Super League, or do you need to make major changes for game one?
We're a part-time team, so we're obviously not ready, right? But again, here's our aspirations and our expectations, right? Is whatever squad that we go into that first game in Super League with, that we have to have nailed pre-season. We have to be making sure that we are physically prepared for the adjustment of the speed and aggression of that game, and not just to do it for 35 minutes like we did against KR in the Challenge Cup. You got to do it for 81, 82 minutes, Do I think that we're going to go round one, bang, against Wigan and roll them? No, probably not. But do I think that we are going to be ready for that next level of consistent competition? Yeah. And again, it won't be a team full of names you've heard of, because if it is, then I probably haven't done my job as a recruiter, as someone who's out there looking for the next generation. So a lot of our squad has been signed, sealed and delivered ready for Super League for the last 2 months.
Okay. So the squad that York have now, are they very much a part-time team, or very much a hybrid, or or have you got part-time players now that are ready to step up and stay part-time and be with York in the transition years?
Yeah, again, because it's been a part of a 3-year strategy to get prepared and go full-time. We were always going to go full-time in 2026. It's not because of expansion or anything like that. So all the recruitment has been around, right, when we get to this stage, are you going to go full-time with us? Is this your expectation? Do you have your best rugby ahead of you, or is it behind you? The hope is that I have, again, back to that timeline, 50% of our current squad in a Super League environment where it's full-time training, have another gear in them. They also are at an age where they should improve dramatically over the next 3 to 4 years. I need that stock, and then I need to put the guys who know how to win at that level on top of it. And that's your Paul Vaughns. I won't go into others, but...
I thought we were going to get an exclusive then. You must have somebody up your sleeve, Clayton.
I've got long sleeves. So the reality is that, again, we're not reacting to anything. Like, these were decisions that were made months ago.
Yeah.
And we decided months ago that we need to get Super League ready. Who's on this journey? Why? Paul McShane's got it in him. You know? Like... I believe that we have players in our group now that are Super League opportunity ready.
Yeah.
They'll have to prove whether I'm right or I'm wrong, And there won't be an argument. It'll be obvious. They'll either be there and they belong there, or they don't.
I've said on previous podcasts that the Championship has got quite a number of players who I believe Super League could be or should be sniffing around. And I've mentioned, I think in the pre-season one, I mentioned about the likes of Joe Brown, who I've seen on numerous occasions against Widnes, and he's never been like a standout player, but you just know he could take a step up to Super League. And you got Liam Harris, who probably not a lot of people in Super League have heard of, but he's another one that he knows what he's doing. Atta Hingano, he could have another crack at Super League, and you've got a very decent, I'm going to say, spine to the squad. But are some of those part-time players, are they ready to step up to be Super League? Or
they're signed with us because we believe they are.
Yeah.
So again, you run through our team list, right? Tauamata Afa, do I think he can play at a Super League level in a full-time environment? And do I think he's young enough to wear his best rugby? Yeah. Scott Galeno averaging 300 metres carry out of backfield, 100 post-contact. Do I think he just finished a full pre-season with the Melbourne Storm? Do I think he's Super League ready? I think he will be. You know, and Kieran Buchanan, I think Kieran Buchanan this year has been an unsung hero for us. That guy, the bigger the stage, the bigger the performance, right? And he's come through with Liam in that whole FC system. Mate, that there is no doubt in my mind he'll make that jump. Now, Hingano, Harris, you know, Jordan Thompson.
He's been around a while, hasn't he? But he knows he's another player that is very accomplished.
100%. You know, Jack Martin, Kieran Hudson. Like, Jack Martin, I would say, is one of the top 3 front rowers in the championship. He's 23, mate. Like,
there's a point that I think is probably worth mentioning at this point. So there's been a lot of noise about Super League can't sustain 14 clubs because we don't have the quality in this country at the minute. What do you say to that? Because my opinion is different. I think that if you look at Bradford, Toulouse, York, even Featherstone to some respect, I think there's a lot of players in those championship teams who are actually as good as a lot of the players in the bottom Super League side. So what's your opinion on that?
So is it a case that they've just not been given enough chance to be tested?
You never know. Like, sports is so unfair. And unfair can be a number of things, right? It can be injury, you know, it can be location, it can be, like, you know, we've got one coming in next year who I won't confirm or deny, but he's been sitting behind the hammer at the Dolphins for 2 years and has not been given a chance. Does that mean he's not good enough?
Yeah.
You know, like, there's so many of those stories out there, and I think sometimes we get a bit lazy where we just look at the name where we know they've done something and we go, right, well, I'm going to take them because we know what they can do. I don't know if I've got that balance right or not between the big names and the guys who I think are undiscovered or unpolished gems, you know. But what I do hope is that we have an environment as a club where we'll find out and we just, I see it as our job to get every player to their next level. It's not necessarily going to be the top level, but it's our job as a club to give them an environment and the support to get to the next level. And then once they're at that same job, get them to the next level. And if you can do that in a manner where everyone feels a part of something bigger than themselves, I think we'll find out what these players do have in them.
I think you're right. It's the environment. I mean, I believe we do have enough talent in our country to get on and do something in Super League. You can't throw them all together, these fringe players, and just be at the bottom of the table. They've got to have the right environment. Think about Alex Walmsley of St Helens. He was sort of discarded. Then Batley signed him up through John Key, who we mentioned the other week. And then he was snapped up by St Helens, became... so there is talent there in Championship. You just got to... I mean, some prop forwards, they don't actually mature until they're in the mid-20s. And so...
100%.
There is talent, and I'm just a bit concerned now that they've increased the salary... Not salary cap.
Quota.
That some of these players might not get a chance.
Yeah. We'll find out, won't we?
Clint, we're incredibly excited. Ashes is rolling round. We've been waiting for this for, well, it feels like 20 years. How many years has it actually been? Can't remember.
What, proper England versus Australia? I don't know. I think going back to the 1990s when I think about the last real one to get excited about.
Yeah. The reason I'm so excited this year, I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, but I'm going to throw it out there. There's a lot of Aussie players now choosing to represent their nation of heritage, Samoa, Tonga. Do you think it's going to have any effect on the Aussie team, or do you think that there's just too many players rolling around in Australia for have any sort of effect?
I think that there is definitely a larger pool of that elite talent that could play at that international level and do well. But I also think it would be foolish to think that, you know, there are too many Payne Haas's out there. If Payne Haas and Tino decide not to pull on the green and gold and to represent Samoa, which to me there's nothing wrong with. And we hosted Samoa, you know, in York for that last England series last year. Do I think there's enough talent to win it without him? Yeah, I think you'd be silly not to, you know, acknowledge that. Do I think it's a real opportunity for England to beat Australia this year? 100%.
Yeah.
Like, it's the home nation, international series on home soil. Like, there's always a chance. There's always a chance.
We always think over here that we just need to get one over the Aussies. I mean, how long is it since we've won a series against Australia? I really can't remember. It was probably
70s.
Yeah. But for Australian fans or the Australian organisation, do they just see it as just it's just another game, we'll just go over and play?
Absolutely not. And again, I want England to win, because that would grow the sport here. It would be great for the game. I am all about England Rugby League, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to take that hat off and be a passionate Aussie for a minute. Anything against England, we take serious. Anything against England. If it's making a cup of tea, how do we stir it better? Anything.
How is it portrayed in the media over in Australia? This is it going to... I mean, right, the rugby union that's just been happening, the Lions talk.
What's rugby union?
It's just I've just seen it on Sky Sports recently, I think.
Okay.
But I just know something's happened. I would imagine it's big news in Australia because they've had packed out stadiums. Why doesn't...
I think it's packed full of Brits, isn't it?
Well, it seems like it, but it's packed stadiums. Why won't it be packed stadiums if it was... just going off topic a little bit.
No. I get what you're saying
If
here.
it was England Rugby League, Britain Rugby League, whatever, over in Australia, why aren't the stadiums... I mean, they'll just go for like a 20,000 stadium. Why aren't the stadiums packed out then?
What are you talking about? What on earth are you talking about? If England comes to Australia, you think that's not a sellout?
Well, why isn't it at the MCG?
What are we talking about?
Truth.
We're talking about England Rugby League coming to Australia, not selling it out. If you guys came for a 3-test series, as the Lions, as an Ashes series, it sells out. It sells out, 100%. Let me put it to you this way, right? We want to beat you every opportunity we get, and there is going to be as many people there to see that as possible. I don't know where this non-sellout thing's coming if England was playing an Ashes series in Australia. And the MCG, let me tell you, big stadium that. What is it, 100,000?
Biggest in the world, isn't it?
No, there's some big ones in America, but and other places. But it's about 100,000, right? Let's say we got 75,000 there. Here's the other thing: non-rugby league city, and that's where for me, I'll always believe that this game can work in non-traditional rugby league areas. In a non-rugby league city, you get 70,000 there, if not more, because Melbourneers and Victorias are sports mad, and like you guys, you chuck your national colours on where you're competing against one of the arch rivals. Mate, who's saying it wouldn't sell out? I don't know where that's coming from.
So you say...
No, hang on a minute. What do Australians value more these days? State of origin or international rugby? It's state of origin.
Here's what I'll say.
Go on.
When we lost the World Cup to New Zealand in, I think, 2008, I can tell you in 2009, our international focus shifted dramatically. I think that we like the spectacle of state of origin because it is very guttural.
Yeah.
Like for a kid who grew up in the bush, Australia's poorest town, Sydney seemed further away than London. Like it is a different world. I've never seen the beach. It's different. They have everything. We have nothing. We're going to get them. Whereas in an Australia versus England thing, it's we will always be this, I don't know, dirty little cousin down south that is just trying to throw stones at the regal folk up north, and we take it very, very serious.
Because over here, we you're obviously proven us wrong. We think that people in Australia don't really care about the international game. Would you say there's some truth in that?
If we didn't care, we wouldn't be winning it.
I suppose so.
That is the impression I've got for certainly the last 10 years that state of origin has took much more of precedence than the international game. Although I do think it's changing. At the minute. I do think it's changing.
But I get that because the state of origin is very tribal. I suppose it's like in football, Man United versus Man City or Liverpool, and like Wigan v St Helens in rugby league. It happens that often that it's a regular fixture. But internationally, it's just not.
But here's the thing: what's changed since 1994? Persistent and consistent viewership, right? So since that last Kangaroo tour, it's been sporadic. So how can we care about something that's not happening? Whereas state of origin, 3 games every year, it matters. We care. Let's get them, right? If there was an international calendar that was aligned with, let's be honest, the Super League and the NRL, and that was planned and committed to for multiple decades as a theory, whether it be, every 4 years there's an Ashes tour down to Australia, 4 years later here, World Cups in between. You telling me that rivalry wouldn't spark again overnight? Like, we don't like you. When you're wearing your nation's colours and we're wearing ours, we don't like you. But what's great about our two countries, and New Zealand as well, when it's not on the field, we really like you. We're all very similar in how we approach things.
But persistently inconsistent. I mean, we spoke off air about the good old 90s and the Test series, and it was every 2 years, and you knew when the Australians came over.
And consistent.
Oh, right, okay.
And that persistent and consistent approach is the business model, right? We talk about change for change's sake, and this isn't working and that isn't working. We don't know if it works. Whereas back then, every 2 years, 3-game series, club games, like you knew it was coming, you knew the players, you got familiar, like Gary Schofield, Andy Gregory, Ellery Hanley, like household names in Australia. That was lost after 94.
Whereas I'm talking about persistently inconsistent, meaning we don't know when the next international series are going to be.
Biggest crime in rugby league is not having a fixed international calendar.
But you just knew every 2 years, Great Britain versus Australia, whether it's over there or here, you knew, like with the Lions, with rugby union, there would be a midweek touring team against. And again, another added thing for how high you wanted to finish in the table. You knew if you were, I think it was the top 6 teams, you were going to get a game against Australia or New Zealand or wherever was touring.
Loved it. I have one more random stat for you, right? One more random stat. 1908 Kangaroo Tour, first ever Kangaroo Tour to the UK, right? Which club didn't lose to Australia first? Ever? York. So,
really?
Yeah, 5-all draw at the old Clarence Street ground, that very first Kangaroo Tour. I love that. There can only be one first, mate, and York was it. We did not lose to the Aussies.
He's not disappearing from York anytime soon, is he?
No, it's home, mate. It's home.
Yeah.
Clint, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you for nearly 2 hours. I think it might end up being 2 episodes. This we'll see when we start getting into the edit. But look, I do wish you all the best in your bid for Super League. You're a very smart guy. You seem to be doing everything right, and a club that's on the up. So yeah, I wish you all the best for what's to come down the line in October, whenever it happens.
Yeah, I appreciate you, gentlemen. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.